Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. I have an outstanding guest for you guys today. Jim Packard is a distinguished entrepreneur known for his relentless consistency and for his remarkable achievements. From being the top producing paper boy when he was growing up to transforming a $500 investment into a $17 million a year business, Jim's daily dedication is what has fueled his success. He is a highly successful network marketer, recognized as Distributor of the Year for 2 different companies. And despite his personal success and sharing his winning strategies, he found that most people couldn't replicate his results. This led him to discover the consistency chain, a breakthrough that transformed his approach and enabled greater success for others in his organization. So we're going to talk about all of these things when we bring Jim Packard on. So help me welcome Jim Packard. Jim, how the heck are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Dan?
Man, if I was any better, I would be you, Jim Packard. It's a pleasure to have you on. You know, I had the pleasure of having your son on, and you and George Campbell were on my previous show, Why Not Wednesday. So it's just great to have you back on the show and share you with a whole new audience.
I'm pleased to be here, and especially with your new venture.
You know, this has been so fun. Why Not Leadership is all about saying why not to a lot of different things in life. And, you know, Jim, I know you as someone who has said why not many times in your life. I love that in the introduction, we talked about you being the top selling paper boy. How old were you when that happened, Jim? And tell us a little bit about that. You know, that usually I want to get into people's background, but that's a great introduction, you know? So tell us about what it was like to be the top producing paper boy, and how'd you do that?
Well, it was when I was living in Florida. The Miami News had a contest where the top 3 people jumped on an airplane and went to the Seattle's World's Fair. And number 4 through 60 jumped on a train and went up to Washington, D.C., and then to New York City to see Radio City Music Hall and to go to a New York Yankees game. And I was a great, great New York Yankee fan back in the days. I've since seen the light. I'm now a Boston Red Sox fan. But anyway, they had this contest, and I said, I just want to finish 4 through 60, just 4 through 60, win that trip, get on that train, and go see the Yankees. Unfortunately, I didn't finish 4 through 6. I finished first. So I won the trip to Seattle's World's Fair. And I traded down to number 4 so I could get on the train and go see the Yankees instead of going to the World's Fair. That's a true story. I think I was in junior high school when that happened.
So, you know, most people want that top prize. So, which is what I think you accomplished both goals, right? So you won the top prize, but then you traded down to get what you really wanted. You know, said something really interesting, Jim. I can understand switching teams, but to go to your team's most hated rival, how do you go from the Yankees to the Red Sox? We're going to have you explain that a little bit.
Well, I moved back to the state of Maine, and if you're living in Maine, you can't root for the Yankees. You have to root for the Red Sox.
Wow. So is that easy? You wanted to be friends with your neighbors, and you wanted to make sure you could get along with everybody.
I didn't want to lose any friends. No.
Oh, that's fantastic, Jim. So how long have you been a Red Sox fan now?
Oh, gosh, forever. I'm part of Red Sox Nation. Even out here in Arizona, we get the Major League Baseball channel, and Sherry and I probably watch 120 games a year.
So so the Red Sox games, and now do the Red Sox come to Arizona for spring training, Jim?
They came out once. They'll come out once for the regular season. They won't come out for spring training, but they'll come out maybe once during the regular season. We'll go see them, of course.
Fantastic. So I've got to figure out, and that is in the fall, right? I mean, that's World Series time. Baseball is really in the summer. I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to get out and play some golf with you, Jim.
Yeah, that would be fun. We look forward to that.
So Jim, I had the pleasure of having your son Adam, and when I look at your titles of the different things you've done, you're currently the chief marketing officer for Ninja Prospecting, but really what you're famous for is the consistency chain, and we talked about it in the introduction. And there's two books. I got the original one a long time ago, the consistency chain for network marketing, and then that became the consistency chain, which was the second version. But you've got a long history in network marketing. How did you get into network marketing, Jim?
Well, it was interesting when I graduated from the University of Maine. In fact, I went to school with Stephen King. He was in my graduating class. But I couldn't wait to get out and get a job. And I got a job at a large retail store down in Hartford, Connecticut called G. Fox and Company. And I was on the executive training squad, training to become a buyer. I was running into, the men's department at one of their branches, and they had a sales contest going on where the top performing department manager that was over quota for their budget won a trip to Bermuda. And I won that trip. So Sherry and I went to Bermuda, and when we came back home, there was a letter in the mail. In this letter, I opened it up, and it says, "Dear Sir, your name has come to our attention as the type of person that possesses the qualities that we're looking for. We'd love to talk to you at the, on Thursday evening at the downtown Holiday Inn. Would you please join us?" And I'm thinking, yes, they finally saw that I had won a contest. Somebody saw the value that I had, and they want to talk to me. So I went to the meeting. Little did I know that it was a network marketing meeting. I'd never heard of network marketing. We joined, we bought the dream. And by the way, that dream cost me in 1976. It cost me $3,200. 1972, by the way, 1972. $3,200 to join that network marketing company. I later found out, it was interesting, they'd sent out 1,000 letters like the one that I received, and Sherry and I were the only ones to respond. And we went to that meeting. We bought the dream. It was a great experience, and it got me involved with goal setting, which I had never been before. Got me involved with reading books like, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right either way. And the company eventually got shut down for front end loading, but it was enough time for me to really gain the confidence to start my own business. And that's what I did. I started my own copier business as a result of having the confidence from the network marketing aspect.
So, network marketing gets a bad rap sometime.
Oh, yes.
There are a lot of great network marketing organizations, and there's some bad ones out there. You probably have experienced both sides of it. If someone is listening, if one of our leaders is listening, and we may have some leaders, I probably would guess that we do have some leaders out there that are leading some network marketing organizations. But what if somebody is listening and they've been approached by a network marketing? What advice would you give them, Jim, in terms of how to look at a network marketing organization and kind of try to discern whether or not it's an organization worth joining? And there are lots of new ones, right? There's the established ones, and you can never go wrong with, I don't know. I think Cutco is one that's just been around forever, right? And we've all, I think everybody I know has sold Cutco knives in college. But tell me, what advice would you have to someone who's thinking of buying that dream?
It's funny you mentioned Cutco. The president of Cutco is a good friend of mine. They had 110,000 reps at the height of their company. But if I was looking at a network marketing company, I'd first look at the leadership, and I'd look at the product. Because if the product is not something that you feel that you can use yourself, then I wouldn't touch it. Looking at new companies, it's always shaky. I mean, you don't know. I mean, you can look at some of the leaders, but at the same time, you got to have a good product. And I think you just need a combination.
So good product, and you've got to look at the leadership. Oftentimes, these companies have great sponsors, right? But they aren't really the leadership. So they've got front people that make the company look good, seem credible. How do you get around that? What would you recommend that someone do to make sure they know that who the leadership is?
Well, obviously you have to do your research, and there are some companies that will go ahead and sponsor a great leader to come to work for their company. Nobody's ever sponsored me. Nobody has ever given me any money to come join their company and bring my team with them. So I've never really experienced that. But it's I know there's a company just recently that had 150,000 people in it, and then it went sour. It went down. And great leadership, great product. I say great product, great potential product. They just couldn't get it off the ground.
Right. And a lot of things can go wrong. Well, tell us about your experience with your $3,200 back in 1972. That's a chunk of change, Jim. Did you make your investment back and you learned a lot, obviously. So, not everything has to be a financial success for it to be a learning success. Tell us what first of all, the bottom line is, did you make your investment back tenfold, 20-fold, 100-fold, as sometimes we hear? And then more importantly, what did you learn?
Yeah, the interesting thing is I found out real quickly that I was good at recruiting people. So yes, I got my money back pretty quickly. So that wasn't a problem. What did I learn? I mean, I learned so much from it, Dan. I mean, just the power of goal setting. In fact, the original set of goals I wrote out in 1971, I have in my wall back here, matted and framed, and it's just the confidence. I mean, just the belief in yourself, mm-hmm. and that belief led me to start my own business.
So that led, and what a great interview you are, Jim, because that was the next question I was going to ask. In the intro, we talked about you turning a $500 investment into a $17 million a year business. So tell us about that journey.
I look back now and I go, how did I ever do it? Okay. But at the time you just, you're young, you have some goals and you just go after it. Now it wasn't always, an easy road. I mean, at one point we had a 34-to-1 debt to equity ratio in our company. I mean, we were on the brink of claiming bankruptcy, and we decided not to. We decided to make some changes. We made those changes and started making profit about 60 days later and never looked back after that. But it was never a bed of roses, that's for sure. But at the same time, I had a goal. I mean, I at the time I was teaching Dale Carnegie classes, and they told you to write down a word picture of where you want to be in 20 years. And mine was so vivid to me. I knew I was going to move to Arizona. I knew I was going to live on a golf course. I knew I was, going to have a pool out back. I knew I was going to get my golf cart and jump and go down to the golf course. So I always had that. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to get it all the time, but I had that as a goal. And obviously that just took over all my thoughts. So, especially I remember one particular day, it was snowy it was a Friday afternoon. I was in Farmington, Maine, about an hour and a half away from my house, and it was snowing and it was bad. And I just kept thinking of, selling the business at some point for X amount of dollars and moving to Arizona. So it really does a number on your head. That's for sure.
I love that you're talking about goal setting and mindset, because one of your key missions is to empower individuals that whether it's network marketing or just anywhere, to achieve success by leveraging the consistency chain. And I got to tell you, I read this book when I first met you and George. I had you guys on the podcast, and obviously have read the second version, which is really the same book, but it's for everyone. And what I loved about what you guys did in the concept is the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, right? You're going to get 80% of your production from your top 20% of producers. And that's the case everywhere. You guys have created a way for the 80% to behave more like the top 20%. And really the key is consistency. So tell us about, for those sales leaders out there that are wanting to make their sales teams better through consistency, what are some of the things that they're going to learn? Obviously, we want them to buy the book, and it's the consistency chain, and it's on Amazon, and you can go out and get it. But what are some of can you give us some of the key lessons that leaders need to know that they're going to learn in the consistency chain to help their 80% be more like their top 20%?
Yeah, it was funny how we got together. My son was having a meeting down in Tucson, and he called me up and he says, "Dad, you come down and support the speaker that I have." And I didn't know who the speaker was, but I said, "Sure." So I get down there, and Jeff introduces George, who's my partner in the consistency chain, as the number one, motivational rep in the country. He went by the name of Joe Malarkey, America's worst motivational speaker. That's how they had him billed. And George came on and spoke. And when he got done, I said, "My God, this guy is really funny, Jeff. Where did you find him?" And little did I know that George was a stand-up comic for 10 years and shared the stage with people like Jerry Seinfeld. And then for 20 years, he toured the country as Joe Malarkey, America's worst motivational speaker. And I just loved everything he was doing from stage. So I went up to him and asked him if he ever needed a partner. I'd love to partner with him. And he said that one thing it always got to him. He said, "How can you be a 20%er in some areas and an 80%er in other areas?" Because network marketing came very easy to me. Growing my business, I mean, I look back now and we built a pretty large business, and I've had a good marriage, 54 years. And so I've always been the number one rep in anything that I've done. George wasn't the same in network marketing. So he was doing a lot of research on the difference between a 20%er and an 80%er. The 20%ers, they know what has to be done and they do it on a regular basis. The 80%ers know what needs to be done. They just don't do it on a consistent basis. So why is that? Especially if you take away all the things that are common in both groups, like ambition and the training and the motivation, they all exist. And it wasn't until he read a study about the marshmallow test, which is about putting 300 kids in a room and telling the kids and putting a marshmallow down in front of them and saying, "If you don't eat the marshmallow, and by the time I come back in the room, which will be 20 minutes, I'll give you a second marshmallow." Well, 80% of the people, or of those kids, ate the marshmallow. 20% didn't. And what that tells you is that the ability to delay gratification is probably the number one hindrance to reaching goals. And our whole book is based around this consistency chain. It's a goal setting strategy for people that have a hard time sticking to a goal. And it's a strategy that gives us a different way to measure success. So it's a great book. And for the 20%ers, they're going to do their own thing anyway, just get out of their way. But the 20%ers usually lead the 80%ers, and now it just gives them a much better understanding of what motivates an 80%er.
So, Jim, you brought up a couple of things. I'm not gonna let. There's a question that came up. There's something you brought up when you were just talking. Consistency is important, and sales success is important. And you talked about delayed gratification. We're going to talk about that. But you also threw in there something that's really outstanding. You've been married 54 years, Jim. Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
To you and to your wife for a tremendous achievement. But let's get some wisdom. Jim, you've been doing this for longer than a lot of people have been alive. This marriage thing. What are some of the things that you use in your professional life? I bet if I talked to your wife, she'd say Jim is so darn consistent, right? Yeah. You know what you're going to get. But what is one secret to a marriage of 54 years?
Well, first of all, I found somebody really young when I got married. She was 18 when we got married, and she still laughs at my jokes. I mean, I think having a sense of humor is so important. She's been so supportive of everything I've ever done. If I come home and said, hey, I want to start this or I want to do this, she's always been supportive of that. And I can't imagine running a business without a supportive wife, quite frankly. And she's certainly been there the whole time. And she's been us when we wrote down our original goals. And in fact, I don't know if Adam mentioned that to you, but when he was in junior high school, the only gift that I ever asked for Christmas, because you know how the kids come to you and you ask you for, Dad, what do you want for Christmas? I don't need another tie. I don't need another shirt. I just told them, I want your goals in writing, guys. And we started writing their goals, 4 different areas, 8 action plans, 2 reward systems, and they did that all through junior high school and high school. And my wife and I were very supportive on that with them. So we've been, as a family, we've been writing our goals forever.
So is that something, I mean, that's so wonderful. I spoke with Jerry Lujan and his daughter, Kelly. So you're the second father-son, father-daughter combination that I've had on the show. And she mentioned, we went through the law of success. And that's something that she learned growing up. Is this something you did with all your kids? It was something, what I bet Adam would say is, I didn't even know that it was goal setting. It was just something we did, right? You didn't give it a name or anything. How did you get the family into this process and do it together? Because I know your kids are also very successful, Jim.
Thank you. Yeah. During the time period I was teaching Dale Carnegie classes. I taught over 100 sales classes for him. And in that class, we talk a lot about goal setting. So it came from that class and I didn't need another shirt or tie, just do something meaningful. And really, my kids have been writing out their goals since they were in junior high school and all through high school. And when they got into college, they did it all through college as well. And I remember Jeff, he really wanted a job with Tom Hopkins out of school. And I said to him, I said, Jeff, you really want that job? I'll help you get it. And I didn't know Tom from anybody. But Jeff went in for the interview and they asked him if he was meeting with Tom Hopkins and the president of Tom Hopkins International. And I said, well, why should we hire you? And I said, and at that point, Jeff opened up his notebook and he had inside the notebook his goals laminated from his 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 1, 2, 3, 4 years of college. Had them all laminated, his goals. And he looked at him, he says, I've had goals, I've written them for years. I need a vehicle to do that. I was hoping you were going to be that vehicle because if you were, I was going to make us both a lot of money. Well, obviously they hired him on the spot because of that. And so I know goal setting works.
Before we move on, Jim, I want to get, what's your wife's name?
Sherry.
Sherry. And how many kids do you have?
2 sons.
Sherry, Jeff and Adam.
Yeah, both great entrepreneurs. Jeff owns a solar company. He's been doing that for about 13, 14 years. And Adam owns a LinkedIn marketing company.
And like I said, we had a chance to talk to Adam. That was such a fun interview. What does it mean? So one of the things you've done, Jim, in your career is obviously lead teams. What is it that you do differently? Because I know you're about consistency and you help people replicate that consistency in order to get results. Goal setting is a part of it. What is it that you do different? What is it that you think you bring that's different than other leaders do that has led to your success?
Well, I certainly, no matter what company I've been with, I lead by example. Mm-hmm. Even when I owned my copier company, and we owned that for about 25 years, I found out that I probably wasn't as good a leader as I should have been, but I was a good judge of people. And I hired the right people to come in and, run our company. I hired the general manager and the accountant and the sales manager and service manager. And in fact, when we sold the company, when the company that bought us out was doing their due diligence, they all said that the people that I had hired all said that they were responsible for the success of the company, which was just beautiful because I was the one that kind of hired them all. But so I reached the point where I was just a salesman for our company. I mean, I was president of the company, but at the same time, I had a territory. I just went out there and led by example. I mean, nobody worked any harder than I did. When we started in network marketing, the very first 2 people I ever sponsored in network marketing, I mean, number 1 and number 2 were Jeff and Adam. And they both went on to become runner-up and distributors of the year. So it was just and we led by example. Every single time we led by example. So,
I love that. So you were the president of the company. You were leading the company, but you also had a territory. Was it the same type of territory as everybody else had? Did you have the same responsibilities
Yes.
that everybody else did, or were you running? We're just experiencing it because I can't imagine leading an organization and all the big decisions that come with that, and also running a territory. But our leaders want to know: do they need to get out and have the same quota that their field guys do, or do they just need to make sure they're out there experiencing the same things?
Well, initially, I took the territory that the previous 3 salesmen had failed in. I didn't want to put another salesperson in that territory and have them fail again. So I took that territory, made it probably the most productive territory that we had. And it was a balance. Life is a balancing act. I mean, you have to balance your work life and your business life, and I was able to do that. And but I knew what it was like. I knew what the salesmen were encountering every single day out in the field. So it allowed me to relate to everybody better. So
That's fantastic. Because I was talking to Dave Durand, and he was big at Cutco. I don't know if you remember that name, Jim.
I was never in Cutco. I just became friends with the president. He was there for like 22 years, Mike Lancelot.
Okay, Mike. We'll have to connect the dots there because Dave Durand was on the show and he was a fantastic interview, and that's where he got his start way back when, and doing some amazing things. But Jim, you talked about well, the reason I bring that up is he talks about the fact that as your responsibility in a company increases, your responsibilities need to decrease, right? So you need to try to do less. You've got to do less things better. Because you're leading an entire organization versus when you're in a territory, hey, you've got to go out and you've got to connect with people. You got to prospect. You've got to make the calls. And the best way to be really good at it is to make more calls, right? That's where that consistency comes in. What's the best leadership advice you ever got when it came to leading sales teams, Jim?
Wow. Well, I know in my own case, there was a Peter principle involved. I knew that there were better people out there than myself to lead the team. And I found the best sales manager I could possibly find. I mean, he was so much better than I would ever think of be. And I put him in charge. At the same time, I found a general manager that was so good with people. I put him in charge of all the people. And I stayed, I stayed in my territory. I mean, I was involved in all the decision making in the company, but it was just finding the right person and putting them into the position.
That is such good advice, Jim. I've heard, that sometimes as leaders, especially as founders, right? If you started the company, it's really hard to let go and say, oh gosh, nobody can do it as well, especially for you, because you're so darn good at sales, Jim. And you've always been good. You've always been a top performer, to give up the position and say, you know what, I can find somebody better. How do you, I think that's a great lead into the self-awareness that it's got to take, because you said it yourself. You probably weren't the best leader. You could have been a better leader, but you found a great leader to lead the organization, and then you found a great GM who was a great people person. And I think you're a great people person too, but I can understand there are traits that you saw that you said, hey, I want that guy to lead my sales organization. So what led to that great self-awareness for you so that you could let go of the responsibility and let someone else take the reins?
It probably was going through the downtime of having a 34-to-1 debt to equity ratio. That was very eye-opening for me. You had basically 2 salesmen running the company, and you realize that 2 salesmen can't run a company. You need the CPA that can, talk the language of the bank, and you need a service manager that really relates to all the technicians. And it was probably during that time period, of that debt to equity ratio, going through that. And there's another book that I read. It's Getting All You Can Out of All You Got by Jay Abraham, and he says if you look at other industries and see what made them successful, And if you can apply that to your industry, what might be as common as dirt in their industry, when applied to your industry, could have the effect of an atomic bomb going off. And that was so eye-opening to me, because during that time period, we'd had a contest, and we'd taken a bunch of salespeople to the Sandals Resort. And that was a great resort. I mean, you just check in, you put your wallet in the safe, and everything was included. And I think, what a great concept. Well, I took that concept, took it back to Maine with me. And when we started selling copiers, I said, well, why don't we'll give the copier, Dan, you have an office, you bought a copier. Well, rather than you buy the copier and then buying service and then buying supplies and then, all that, what if I just put the copier in there, charge you per copy, and give you all the supplies with it? Well, we took that concept from Jay Abraham, applied it to our business, and it had like an effect of an atomic bomb going off. It took our competitors probably 3 or 4 years to catch up to us, because they didn't know what we were doing. They were thinking, how can this company give a copier to a company and not get paid for it? But we were, obviously.
So you gave the copier, but then you charged them by the copy, but then they had all the support that they needed, right? So
absolutely.
So you took a concept from another business and applied it in your own business.
Yes, and we did it, and then we started doing, when I retired, when I say I sold the company and moved to Arizona, I wanted to get back into business again, because I really miss being in business. So I got into the greeting card business. And I should show you. I think I've got one here. Hang on. Yeah. We took this, here's just a card, just a sample card. It says, a toast to the best darn client in the world. When you open it up, it says, you're smart, charming, witty, and wise. And if I might say so, all right. You pull the punchline out of the little envelope. The punchline came out of the thing. Now, that concept came from the Cracker Jack box. It came, how the Cracker Jacks, you have a little prize inside of them?
Yes.
Well, we took that concept and applied it to the greeting card business. And when I walked into PetSmart, they had never heard of us, but I showed them this line of cards with a little envelope inside.
Yes.
They had never seen anything like that. Within 90 days, we were in 900 stores across the country. And that's when I sold them to Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, Harvey McKay, even Elizabeth Taylor, Jill Ireland, because they were different. They were unique. And we just took that same concept and applied it to this business.
It's interesting because we haven't talked about it yet, but when we met during my time at Y Institute, and I took you through discovering your Y operating system, and your why is trust, your how is better way, and your what is simplify. But what real and one of the things we've been talking about with my clients recently is that our how is very strong, and in you it is very strong, because one of the things that I know Better Way people are really good at is taking things from one industry and applying it somewhere else. If it's a better way to do something, why not try it somewhere else? And I love that we're saying, why not? Why not try it in your business? Why not try something different, try something new, and see what results? And as you said, it had a fantastic impact on your business. But let's talk about that. For those that didn't get a chance to meet you on Why Not Wednesday, Jim, how does the why of trust, the how of Better Way, and the what of simplify feel to you? Do you remember? I know it's been a while since we did it, but I know you remember it, because every time we talk, you remind me that you still keep that close by. How did that feel to you, and how does it fit what you've done so far?
Well, when I went through the program of, I believe the success happens when it's based upon trust. And I do that by finding a better way and sharing it. And ultimately, what I bring is a simple solution. What I bring now is a real simple solution. All right. And it really clarified for me. This is not, I'm in the customer retention business now, right? I have been for 20 years now. And it's a simple product. It's a one that I can share very easily with somebody. Right? It just gave me such clarity. I'm thinking, this is not rocket science, is what I do. Okay.
Right.
It's very easy what I do. And that really broke it down and made it clear for me. It really clarified everything for me, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you had that experience, Jim. And I will tell you, I am so blessed to have you in my life. You and I probably pick up the phone and talk once every few months. And I knew that I wanted to share your wisdom with our listeners at Why Not Leadership and how to lead different. I think there's a power to simplicity. There's a power to consistency, and there's a power to finding better ways to do things and trying them in different industries. And I think you look back and you look at 54 years of marriage, you look at having two sons that are very successful. You look at the fact that you set some goals a long time ago, along with Sherry, and here you are living those goals. I don't know what else I can say, Jim, except thank you very much for being on the show, for sharing your wisdom. What do you say we end the show on that note?
I think that's a great idea, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim, for being on. Thank you, leaders, for listening to us and for listening to Jim today. I can't wait to see when we air this podcast and share it with the world. We've had a lot of fun talking and reminiscing and talking about everything you've done, Jim. Thank you for being on. Why Not Leaders? We'll see you next week.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.